Captain Marcus Chen had seen enough derelict space stations to know when something was different. The Meridian orbital platform hung in the void like a sleeping giant, its ancient hull scarred by centuries of cosmic radiation. What made his skin crawl wasn't the size or the obvious alien architecture. It was the complete silence on all communication frequencies. Scanner readings show the station is still powered, reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the navigation console. Energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. The power source appears to be some kind of crystalline matrix. Marcus studied the holographic display floating before him. The station's design was elegant yet unsettling, with flowing curves that seemed to pulse with an inner light. Whoever built this understood beauty, but there was something predatory about its grace, like a Venus flytrap waiting for unwary insects. "Sir, we're detecting a single life sign," Kim continued, her voice tight with confusion. "It's located in what appears to be the central core. The readings are strange, almost like the being is in some kind of suspended state." The exploration vessel Frontier had been charting this remote sector for 6 months. They'd found plenty of dead worlds and asteroid fields, but nothing like this. The station predated human space travel by millennia, yet it maintained perfect orbit around a dying star. "Any signs of defensive systems?" Marcus asked his tactical officer. "Negative, Captain. The station appears completely passive. No weapon signatures, no shield generators. It's almost like—" The officer paused, searching for words. "Like it's waiting for something." Marcus made his decision.
"Prep a boarding party."
"Full environmental suits and standard exploration protocols. I want xenobiologists and archaeologists on the team." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's lead xenobiologist, stepped forward. "Captain, if there's a living being on that station after all this time, we need to be extremely careful. The preservation technology alone could revolutionize our understanding of biology." "Agreed. But remember, we don't know what we're dealing with. The being could be hostile, or the station itself might be a trap." 2 hours later, Marcus found himself floating through an airlock that had somehow recognized their approach. The station's interior was breathtaking. Walls seemed to be grown rather than built, with organic curves that pulsed with soft bioluminescence. The air was clean and breathable, maintained by systems that had functioned flawlessly for ages. "The gravity generators are still functioning," noted Chief Engineer Rodriguez. "Artificial gravity at approximately 0.9 Earth normal. Whatever built this was remarkably advanced. They moved through corridors that felt more like arteries than hallways. The walls were warm to the touch and seemed to respond to their presence with subtle shifts in lighting. It was beautiful and deeply unsettling. "Captain, you need to see this," Dr. Vasquez called from ahead. She stood before a massive viewing portal that revealed the station's central chamber. Marcus joined her and felt his breath catch. The chamber was enormous, filled with what looked like a garden suspended in space. Crystalline trees reached toward an artificial sun, their branches heavy with fruit that glowed like captured starlight. At the center of this impossible garden stood a structure that defied description. It was part building, part sculpture, part living organism. "The life sign is coming from inside that structure," Vasquez whispered. "Whatever's in there has been waiting for a very long time." As they watched, the garden seemed to sense their presence. The crystalline trees began to chime softly, creating a melody that spoke of ancient loneliness and desperate hope. The artificial sun pulsed brighter, and for a moment Marcus could have sworn he saw a figure moving within the central structure. "Captain," Kim's voice crackled through their communicators. "The station's power output just increased dramatically. Whatever you're doing in there, the entire structure is responding to your presence." Marcus felt the weight of decision settling on his shoulders. They could retreat, report their findings to Earth Command, and return with a full fleet. Or they could continue forward into the unknown, toward whatever had been waiting in this beautiful prison for longer than human civilization had existed. The melody from the crystal trees grew more complex, more urgent. It spoke of centuries of solitude, of hope slowly dying in the darkness between stars. But underneath the sadness, Marcus heard something else. A strength that had refused to break. A will that had endured when lesser beings would have surrendered to despair. "We continue forward," he decided. "But we go carefully. Whatever's in there has been alone for a very long time. We might be the first visitors this place has seen in centuries." As they approached the central structure, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a story that had been waiting eons for someone to hear it. The bioluminescent walls pulsed like a heartbeat, and somewhere ahead, Something that had never given up hope was finally about to be free. The central structure revealed itself as they drew closer. What Marcus had initially mistaken for architecture was actually a living entity, its surface rippling with patterns that reminded him of neural networks. Doorways opened as they approached, revealing passages that seemed to breathe with anticipation. "Bioscanners are going crazy," Dr. Vasquez reported, studying her handheld device. "This entire structure is alive, but it's unlike any organism I've encountered. It's more like a fusion of technology and biology. The life sign we detected is deeper inside, but the structure itself is definitely sentient." The team moved through corridors that adjusted their dimensions to accommodate the human visitors. The walls displayed moving patterns of light that seemed to tell a story without words. Marcus caught glimpses of star systems, of great ships moving between worlds, of a civilization that had reached heights humanity could barely imagine. "The images," whispered Dr. Vasquez. "They're showing us their history. Look at this." The wall beside her showed a sequence of images that made the team pause in wonder. Beautiful beings with elongated limbs and luminescent skin moved through crystal cities that hung in space like jewels. Their technology was seamlessly integrated with nature, creating wonders that were both functional and artistic. "They called themselves the Viridian," Dr. Vasquez continued, somehow understanding the story being told. "They were explorers, artists, gardeners of worlds. But something went wrong. The images shifted, showing darker scenes. The crystal cities began to crack and fade. The beautiful beings fought against something that the walls couldn't quite show, something that existed more as an absence than a presence. One by one, the lights of their civilization went out. A plague, Engineering Chief Rodriguez realized, something that attacked their life force directly. They couldn't fight it with technology because it fed on the very energy that powered their society. The corridor opened into a vast chamber dominated by a single crystalline formation. Inside the crystal, suspended like an insect in amber, was the most beautiful being Marcus had ever seen. She was tall and graceful, with skin that held an inner light and features that spoke of ancient wisdom. Her eyes were closed, but even in her imprisoned state, she radiated a presence that filled the chamber with dignity. "The preservation field is incredible," Dr. Vasquez breathed. "She's been in perfect stasis for thousands of years. Her cellular structure shows no deterioration whatsoever, but the energy readings suggest the field is beginning to weaken." Around the crystal prison, symbols glowed with fading light. Marcus didn't need translation to understand their meaning. This was a warning system, counting down to the moment when the preservation field would fail completely. "How long does she have?" he asked. "At current degradation rates, maybe hours. The field is failing exponentially." Marcus approached the crystal formation, studying the imprisoned woman's peaceful face. There was something about her expression, even in stasis, that spoke of sacrifice rather than defeat. This wasn't the face of someone who had been captured. This was someone who had chosen imprisonment. "Captain," Dr. Vasquez called urgently. "The symbols are changing. The structure is trying to communicate with us." New patterns flowed across the walls, showing the final chapter of the Viridian story. As their civilization died around them, the survivors had made a desperate choice. They would place their last hope, their greatest treasure, in a preservation field powered by their dying star. They would wait for someone else, someone different, someone who might find a way to break the curse that had destroyed their people. The images showed hands touching the crystal surface, hands that belonged to different species from across the galaxy. Each attempt to free the imprisoned woman had failed, sometimes catastrophically. The would-be rescuers had been consumed by the same plague that had destroyed the Viridian civilization. She's not just a survivor, Marcus realized. She's a repository. Everything the Viridian knew, everything they were, it's stored within her. But the prison isn't just keeping her alive. It's keeping something else contained. The symbols pulsed more urgently, and suddenly Marcus understood. The plague that had destroyed the Viridian hadn't been defeated. It had been trapped along with their last hope, locked in a crystalline cage that was now failing. If the field collapsed naturally, both the woman and the plague would be released together. But there was another way. The symbols showed a different possibility, something that had never been tried before. Instead of using energy to break the crystal, someone could use something the plague couldn't consume or corrupt. The images showed hands again, but these hands were different. They belonged to a species the Viridian had never encountered. A species that generated something the plague couldn't touch. "Human bioelectric fields," Dr. Vasquez whispered. understanding flooding her voice. We're different. Our neural patterns, our life energy, it's structured differently than anything else they encountered. The plague can't process our type of consciousness. Marcus stared at his own hands, then at the beautiful woman trapped in crystal. The weight of choice settled on him again, heavier this time. He could save her. But touching the crystal would mean direct contact with forces that had destroyed an entire civilization. There was no guarantee that human differences would be enough protection. "Sir," Rodriguez warned, "the field destabilization is accelerating. Whatever you're going to decide, it needs to be soon." The woman's eyes remained closed. But for a moment, Marcus could have sworn he saw her lips move slightly, as if she were trying to speak across the barrier of crystal and time. In that movement, he saw not just a plea for rescue, but an acceptance of whatever choice he made. She had waited centuries for this moment, and she would trust the judgment of whoever finally stood before her prison. The decision formed in Marcus's mind with crystalline clarity. Sometimes being human meant taking impossible risks for impossible reasons. Sometimes it meant reaching out to touch the untouchable, simply because someone needed help. He pulled off his gloves and stepped toward the crystal, his bare hands extended toward the surface that had contained both hope and horror for millennia. Marcus's palms pressed against the crystal surface, and the universe exploded into sensation. Energy coursed through him, not painful but overwhelming, like touching a live wire made of pure consciousness. The crystal began to resonate, harmonizing with the strange bioelectric signatures that made humans unique among the galaxy's species. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then cracks appeared in the crystal, hairline fractures that spread like spiderwebs across the perfect surface. But these weren't the chaotic breaks of destruction. They formed patterns, flowing designs that spoke of release rather than shattering. "Captain," Dr. Vasquez shouted. "The plague energy readings are spiking, but they're not spreading. Something's containing them." Marcus felt it too. The malevolent presence trapped within the crystal was trying to escape, trying to flow through his touch into the wider universe, but it couldn't. Human consciousness operated on frequencies that the plague couldn't interpret or corrupt. It was like trying to infect a computer with a virus written for an incompatible operating system. The crystal dissolved like sugar in rain, its substance flowing away in streams of pure light. The woman within began to fall forward, and Marcus caught her instinctively. Her weight was slight but real, her skin warm with returning life. For the first time in centuries, she drew an unassisted breath. Her eyes opened, revealing irises that held the depth of nebulae and the warmth of distant suns. When she looked at Marcus, her expression cycled through confusion, wonder, and finally profound gratitude. She tried to speak, but her voice was barely a whisper after millennia of silence. "The plague," Marcus asked urgently. "Where is it now?" She raised a trembling hand to touch his face, and suddenly Marcus understood. The touch created a bridge between their minds, allowing communication beyond words. Images flowed between them, showing him what had happened in the moment of release. The plague had indeed tried to escape through their connection. But instead of finding a new host to corrupt, it had encountered something unprecedented. Human consciousness, with its chaotic creativity and stubborn irrationality, was antithetical to the plague's ordered consumption of life force. The contact had neutralized the plague entirely, destroying it rather than containing it. "She says her name is Liberates," Dr. Vasquez reported, her own equipment picking up the telepathic exchange. "She was the last Viridian archive, a living repository of their entire civilization's knowledge and culture. She volunteered for imprisonment to keep that knowledge safe until someone could free it safely." Through their mental connection, Marcus saw the full scope of what she carried: art forms that used stellar phenomena as canvas, scientific principles that could reshape matter at the molecular level, philosophical concepts that had taken the Viridian millions of years to develop. She was, quite literally, a civilization walking in the form of a single being. But there was more. As Liberates' strength returned, Marcus began to understand the true depth of human uniqueness. The Viridian had explored the galaxy for eons, encountering thousands of species, each with their own approach to consciousness and technology, but none had possessed humanity's particular combination of traits. "Your species," Liberates spoke aloud for the first time, her voice like music played on crystal instruments. "You are chaotic harmonies. Your minds work in patterns that create rather than simply process. This is why the plague could not touch you. It required ordered thought to survive, and your thoughts are beautiful storms." She stood slowly, marveling at her renewed freedom. The garden around them responded to her presence, crystal trees chiming more joyfully and the artificial sun burning brighter. This place had been built for her by her people, designed to keep her safe and sane during the long wait for rescue. The Viridian tried to preserve their knowledge in many ways, she continued, walking toward one of the crystalline trees. Databases, genetic storage, quantum matrices. But knowledge without understanding is just data. I carry not just what they knew, but how they felt about what they knew. Their wonder, their joy in discovery, their love for the universe they explored. She touched the tree and fruit began to glow more brightly. Marcus realized the fruit wasn't decorative. Each piece contained crystallized knowledge, ready to be shared with whoever proved worthy of receiving it. But I carry something else now, Lyrelei said, turning back to Marcus with an expression of growing excitement. Your touch didn't just free me. It created a bridge between human consciousness and Viridian knowledge. I can now understand how your minds work, and through that understanding I can translate our knowledge into forms your species can use. Dr. Vasquez was practically vibrating with excitement. The implications are staggering. Art, science, philosophy, technology that's been developed over millions of years of galactic exploration, and she can adapt it to human thinking patterns. But Lyrelei held up a warning hand. There is danger in this gift. The Viridian fell because they became too ordered, too perfect in their thinking. They lost the chaos that drives growth and adaptation. Your species must not make the same mistake. You must remain human even as you gain knowledge. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders again. This wasn't just first contact with an alien species. This was the potential transformation of humanity itself. Guided by someone who had watched her own people rise to greatness and fall to perfection. What do you need from us? He asked. Time, Lyrelei replied, and teachers. I must learn about your species as much as you must learn about mine. The knowledge I carry must be given carefully, in ways that enhance your natural creativity rather than replacing it. She looked around the garden that had been her home and prison for so long. This place was built to preserve the past, but I think it's time to help build the future instead. The crystal trees chimed in harmony, as if agreeing with her words. After centuries of maintaining a tomb, they were ready to become the foundation of something new, something that would honor both Viridian wisdom and human ingenuity. Marcus smiled, realizing that what had started as a routine exploration mission had become the most important moment in human history. And it was just the beginning. 3 weeks had passed since Lyrelei's liberation, and the frontier had become something unprecedented in human space exploration. What started as a simple research vessel was now the galaxy's first interspecies university, with Lyrelei serving as both teacher and student. Marcus watched from the observation deck as his crew worked, alongside their alien guest in the converted cargo bay. Dr. Vasquez was deep in discussion with Lyrelei about Viridian bioengineering principles, while Engineering Chief Rodriguez studied holographic projections of power systems that seemed to violate several laws of physics. The fascinating thing, Lyrelei explained to the assembled humans, is that your species approaches problems from directions the Viridian never considered. We always sought the most elegant solution, the perfect balance, but you find strength in imperfection, power in chaos. She gestured, and the air filled with a 3-dimensional display showing molecular structures. Take your approach to medicine. The Viridian would eliminate disease by achieving perfect biological harmony. But you fight it, you adapt to it, you turn it against itself. Your immune systems are beautiful disasters that work precisely because they're unpredictable. Dr. Sarah Kim, who had been documenting everything for the eventual report to Earth Command, looked up from her recording devices. You make chaos sound like a good thing. It is, Lyrelei replied with genuine enthusiasm. Order without chaos leads to stagnation. Chaos without order leads to destruction. But chaos constrained by purpose, directed by will, that creates miracles. That's what makes humans unique. She turned to Rodriguez, who was frowning at a power coupling design. You're trying to understand this the Viridian way, seeking mathematical perfection. But watch what happens when you apply human intuition. Rodriguez sighed and set aside his calculations. Instead, he studied the design like he was looking at a broken engine, trying to figure out what was wrong with it. After a few minutes, his expression changed. It's not about efficiency. It's about redundancy. This system works because it has 17 different ways to fail safely. Exactly, Lirelai said, clapping her hands in delight. Human engineering assumes failure and plans for it. Viridian engineering sought to eliminate the possibility of failure entirely. Your approach is more robust because it acknowledges that perfection is an illusion. Marcus joined the group, carrying coffee for his exhausted crew. The past weeks had been intense, with everyone working around the clock to understand and document the knowledge Lirelai was sharing. But there was something electric in the air, a sense that they were participating in a transformation that would echo through history. Any progress on the communication array modifications? He asked. Better than progress, Rodriguez replied excitedly. Lirelai's shown us how to create quantum entanglement networks that function across galactic distances instantly. No more light-speed delays in communication. But the really incredible part is how she adapted the technology. He pulled up another hologram, this one showing network architecture that looked organic rather than mechanical. Viridian networks were perfect but brittle. One component failure could crash the entire system. But when Lirelai saw our internet architecture, she got inspired. She's created a hybrid system that combines Viridian efficiency with human redundancy. The result, Lirelai added, is a communication network that grows stronger with each new connection, rather than more vulnerable. Very human in concept, but enhanced with technologies your species won't develop naturally for centuries. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her own work. Where she'd been studying biological samples, Lirelai had grown from her own genetic memories. That's the pattern we're seeing everywhere. The knowledge Lirelai carries isn't just advanced science. It's advanced science filtered through a completely different way of thinking. When she adapts it for human minds, she's creating something neither species could develop alone. Marcus nodded, but he could see the concern in his crew's eyes. The knowledge they were gaining was incredible, but it was also overwhelming. How could humanity absorb millions of years of alien development without losing what made them human in the first place? You're worried about cultural contamination, Lirelai observed, reading his expression. The fear that human creativity will be replaced by Viridian efficiency. The thought has crossed my mind, Marcus admitted. Then watch this, Lirelai said. She moved to an empty section of the cargo bay and began to sing. The song was unlike anything Marcus had ever heard. It started as pure Viridian music, crystalline and perfect, with mathematical precision in every note. But as she continued, something changed. The melody began to incorporate elements that shouldn't have worked together, harmonic structures that by all rights should have created discord. Instead, the music became more beautiful. The chaos that she'd absorbed from human consciousness had infected her perfect Viridian artistry, creating something that was neither fully alien nor fully human. It was something new, something that honored both traditions while transcending their limitations. When the song ended, the cargo bay was silent for a long moment. Then Chief Rodriguez began to applaud, followed by the others. That's what we're creating together, Lirelai explained. Not human knowledge or Viridian knowledge, but something that emerges from their interaction. Your chaos teaches my order to grow. My order teaches your chaos to build. The result is stronger than either could be alone. Dr. Kim paused in her recording to ask, but how do we prevent this from overwhelming human society? We're talking about technologies and concepts that could remake civilization overnight. Very carefully, Lirelai replied, and with great respect for the human tendency toward gradual change. The Viridian made their greatest mistake when they tried to implement perfect solutions immediately. You humans understand something we forgot. Progress is better when it comes in waves rather than floods. She gestured toward the modified communication array Rodriguez was working on. This technology won't be released all at once. Instead, we'll introduce concepts that lead your scientists toward these discoveries naturally. Nudges rather than revelations. Your species will earn these advances by building on them step by step. Marcus felt some of his worry ease. This wasn't about replacing human achievement with alien knowledge. It was about accelerating human development along paths that would honor both species' contributions. There's something else, Lirelai added, her expression becoming more serious. The galaxy is larger and more dangerous than your species realizes. The plague that destroyed my people wasn't unique. There are forces out there that consume civilizations, beings that feed on order or chaos exclusively. Humanity will need these enhanced capabilities not for conquest but for survival. She looked each of them in the eyes, her ancient gaze carrying the weight of cosmic awareness. Your species is special, but special often means targeted. The universe has a way of testing those who show promise. We must prepare you for those tests without destroying what makes you worth preserving. The magnitude of what she was saying settled over the crew like a heavy blanket. They weren't just gaining knowledge. They were being prepared for a galactic stage where humanity's unique chaotic creativity might be the key to surviving challenges that had destroyed species millions of years older. Marcus straightened his shoulders, feeling the familiar weight of command decision. Then we'd better get to work. We have a species to prepare and a future to build. Around him, his crew returned to their tasks with renewed purpose, while Lyra Lee began humming another hybrid melody, this one with the rhythm of human determination underlying Viridian wisdom. The crisis began 3 months after Lyra Lee's rescue, announced by alarms that sent the Frontier's crew scrambling to battle stations. Marcus reached the bridge to find his navigation officer staring at sensor readings that made no sense. "Captain, we have multiple contacts approaching at impossible speeds," Lieutenant Kim reported, her voice tight with controlled panic. "The energy signatures don't match anything in our databases, but they're definitely artificial. And they're broadcasting some kind of signal that's interfering with our systems." Marcus studied the tactical display, watching as geometric shapes materialized from hyperspace around their position. The vessels were beautiful in their alien perfection, all flowing curves and crystalline structures. But there was something predatory in their formation, something that spoke of weapons designed to destroy rather than explore. Lyra lay to the bridge. "Immediately," Marcus ordered. She arrived within minutes, taking one look at the display before her expression shifted from curiosity to alarm. "Kethvar," she whispered. "I had hoped they were extinct. Friends of yours?" Marcus asked grimly. "Enemies of everyone," Lyra Lee replied. "The Kethvar were once a client species of the Viridian Empire. We tried to teach them our ways, to show them how to achieve harmony with the universe. Instead, they became obsessed with perfection through elimination. They believe the galaxy can only achieve peace by removing all chaotic elements." The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at beings that were hauntingly beautiful and utterly terrifying. The Kethvar looked like sculptures carved from living diamond, their faces expressing mathematical precision rather than emotion. When their leader spoke, his voice resonated with the authority of absolute certainty. "Chaotic elements detected aboard this vessel," the being announced. "Surrender the corrupted archive and the primitive specimens for processing. Compliance will result in efficient termination. Resistance will result in prolonged disassembly." Marcus felt his crew tense around him. After months of working with Lyra Lee, they'd grown protective of their alien teacher. The idea of surrendering her to these crystalline killers was unthinkable. "Counteroffer," Marcus replied, his voice carrying the casual confidence that had gotten him through a dozen first-contact situations. "You leave us alone and we won't have to demonstrate why underestimating humans is a bad idea." The Kethvar leader tilted his head, analyzing the response. "Amusing. The primitive displays protective irrationality toward the corrupted archive. This confirms the extent of contamination. All specimens will require immediate processing." The connection cut and the alien vessels began moving into attack formation. Their weapons powered up, creating energy signatures that made the Frontier's military-grade shields look like paper umbrellas in a hurricane. "Options?" Marcus asked his tactical officer. "Not many, sir. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Our weapons won't penetrate their shields, and they can probably destroy us with a single volley." Lyra Lee stepped forward, her expression grave. "I can surrender myself to them. It might save your crew." "Not happening," Marcus replied immediately. "We don't abandon crew members, and after 3 months, you're definitely crew." "Marcus," Lyra Lee said quietly, "you don't understand. The Kethvar will not stop with me. They see human chaos as the infection that must be eliminated. If they defeat us here, they will track your signal back to Earth and sterilize your entire world." The weight of that revelation settled over the bridge. This wasn't just about their own survival anymore. This was about protecting humanity itself from an enemy that viewed their very existence as a threat to universal order. "There might be another way," Dr. Vasquez said from her position at the science station. "Lyra Lee, you said the Kethvar became obsessed with perfection after contact with your people. What if that obsession is their weakness?" "Explain," Marcus ordered. They eliminated chaos from their own consciousness, Lyrelay realized following Vasquez's reasoning. They can predict and counter-ordered responses because they think in ordered patterns. But human chaos, true randomness, that's something they can't process effectively. Engineering Chief Rodriguez looked up from his console. The hybrid systems we've been developing, the ones that combine Viridian efficiency with human redundancy. Could those systems function in ways the Kethvar can't predict? More than that, Lyrelay said, excitement growing in her voice. If we could expose their perfectly ordered minds to pure human chaos, it might overload their neural networks entirely. They've eliminated their ability to process randomness. Marcus felt a plan forming, dangerous and probably insane, which meant it was perfectly human. What would we need to do? Create a direct neural interface between human consciousness and their command ship, Lyrelay explained. But the risk is enormous. Too much chaos could destroy their minds entirely, and the feedback could kill whoever attempts the connection. I'll do it, Marcus said immediately. Captain, no, Dr. Vasquez protested. The risk to you personally is my responsibility, Marcus finished. But I won't be doing it alone. Lyrelay, can you guide the connection? Keep it controlled enough to disable them without committing genocide? Lyrelay hesitated, then nodded. If we can establish a quantum entanglement bridge using the communication array Rodriguez modified, I can serve as a filter. Your chaos, refined through my understanding, directed with surgical precision. Do it, Marcus ordered. All stations prepare for neural interface protocol. And if this goes wrong, Lieutenant Kim, you get the ship out of here and warn Earth Command. The next few minutes were a blur of activity as the crew jury-rigged a neural interface using technology that shouldn't have worked. Human engineering adapted on the fly. Combined with Viridian knowledge and powered by pure desperation, it was exactly the kind of impossible solution that the Kethvar would never anticipate. Marcus settled into the improvised interface chair as the Kethvar vessels closed to attack range. Lyrelay placed her hands on his temples, establishing the psychic bridge that would carry his thoughts across space to their enemies. Remember, she whispered, don't try to think logically. Just be human. Let your mind wander, dream, create. Show them what they destroyed in themselves when they chose perfection over possibility. Marcus closed his eyes and opened his thoughts to the universe. He thought about jazz music and finger painting, about love poems written by teenagers and the way his daughter laughed when she was 3 years old. He thought about failure and growth, about making mistakes and learning from them, about the beautiful messiness of human existence. The connection established, and suddenly Marcus was inside the Kethvar command ship, his consciousness flowing through their perfect crystalline networks. He felt their confusion as his chaotic thoughts touched their ordered minds, introducing elements of randomness into systems designed for absolute precision. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Kethvar vessels stopped their attack formation, their crews struggling to process experiences they had eliminated from their own existence eons ago. Wonder, doubt, curiosity, joy in imperfection. Through the connection, Marcus felt their leader's mind reeling as it tried to categorize the sensation of hearing music that broke mathematical rules but created beauty anyway. The perfectly ordered being experienced humor for the first time in millennia, felt the delight of surprise, the satisfaction of solving problems through intuition rather than calculation. Pull back, Lyrelay urged. Any more and we'll shatter their minds completely. Marcus withdrew his consciousness, leaving the Kethvar fleet drifting in space as their crews struggled to process what they had experienced. The leader's voice came through the communication array again, but now it carried uncertainty instead of absolute authority. This is impossible. We eliminated such chaos from our existence. How do you function with such disorder in your thoughts? We don't function despite the chaos, Marcus replied, still feeling the after effects of the mental connection. We function because of it. Chaos isn't corruption, it's possibility. The alien vessels remained motionless for long minutes while their crews grappled with concepts they had forgotten how to process. Finally, the leader spoke again. We require time to analyze these new data. The archive will not be processed today, but this matter is not concluded. The Kethvar fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving the frontier alone among the stars. Marcus slumped in the interface chair, exhausted but alive. Did we just turn a genocidal alien species into philosophy students? Dr. Vasquez asked. Maybe, Lyrelay replied, helping Marcus to his feet. Or maybe we just reminded them that there are other ways to see the universe. Either way, we've bought time for humanity to prepare for the challenges ahead. Marcus looked around at his crew, seeing the same realization in all their faces. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders and terrors they couldn't imagine, but they had something unique to offer in return. The beautiful, chaotic, stubborn creativity that made them human. And sometimes, that was exactly what the universe needed. 6 months had passed since the encounter with the HFY, and the frontier had become the center of the most remarkable diplomatic mission in galactic history. The observation deck now served as an informal meeting space where beings from across the galaxy gathered to witness something unprecedented: the birth of a new kind of alliance. Marcus stood at the viewing window, watching as ships from a dozen different species maintained formation around the frontier. Each vessel represented a civilization that had heard about the human crew that had somehow convinced the HFY to question their own fundamental beliefs about order and chaos. The response has been overwhelming, Liberates observed, joining him at the window. In the 3 million years of recorded galactic history, no one has ever successfully negotiated with the HFY. Most species either submitted to processing or were eliminated entirely. Behind them, the observation deck buzzed with activity. Dr. Vasquez was deep in conversation with a crystalline being from the Resonance Collective, comparing notes on bioacoustic healing. Engineering Chief Rodriguez was demonstrating human tool-making techniques to a delegation of machine intelligences that found the concept of intuitive problem-solving fascinating. More ships are arriving every day, Lieutenant Kim reported from her portable communications console. The ethereal wanderers want to study human dream patterns. The hive minds of Kepler Station are requesting cultural exchange programs. Even the reclusive void whisperers have sent an observer. Marcus turned from the window to survey the diplomatic chaos that had taken over his ship. Beings of all shapes and sizes moved through spaces that had been hastily modified to accommodate different atmospheric and gravitational needs. What struck him most was how naturally his crew had adapted to serving as hosts to the galaxy's most exotic visitors. Captain Chen called a melodious voice from across the deck. Marcus turned to see Ambassador Vextar of the Spiral Confederation approaching. The amphibious being moved with fluid grace, her translucent skin shifting colors to indicate emotional states. "Ambassador," Marcus replied with a slight bow, "I trust your accommodations are satisfactory?" "More than satisfactory. Your crew's adaptability continues to impress, but I bring news that may concern you." Her skin shifted to deep blue, indicating serious concern. "The Eternal Order has issued a formal declaration. They consider human chaos to be a galactic threat that must be contained." Lyrelai's expression darkened. "The Eternal Order makes the HFY look like progressive thinkers. They believe the universe should return to a state of perfect stasis, with no change or growth whatsoever. They've been trying to achieve that goal for eons." "How big a threat are they?" Marcus asked. "They control approximately 1/8 of the galaxy," Ambassador Vextar replied. "Their technology is older than most civilizations, and they have resources that dwarf anything you've encountered so far. If they decide humanity is truly dangerous to their vision of cosmic order, they will move to eliminate your entire species." Marcus felt the familiar weight of impossible decisions settling on his shoulders. First the HFY, now the Eternal Order. It seemed humanity's introduction to galactic politics was going to be trial by fire. However, Ambassador Vexatar continued, her skin shifting to hopeful green. "That's precisely why so many species have come to support you. The Eternal Order has been a stagnating influence on galactic civilization for millions of years. The possibility of an alliance capable of challenging their dominance has inspired species that had given up hope of real progress." Dr. Rodriguez looked up from his demonstration to the machine intelligences. "What kind of alliance are we talking about?" "Something that's never existed before," Liberates answered. "Traditional galactic alliances are based on shared technology or compatible biology. But what you humans offer is different. You provide a new way of thinking that enhances every species you encounter." She gestured toward the mixed groups of beings scattered across the observation deck. "Look around. The Resonance Collective and the machine intelligences should be incompatible. Sound-based consciousness and pure logic normally can't communicate effectively. But your crew found common ground by teaching both groups human improvisation techniques." Marcus watched as a resonance being, and a machine intelligence worked together on what looked like a musical equation, their combined efforts creating something neither could achieve alone. It was a small miracle of communication happening right in front of him. The alliance we're proposing, Ambassador Vextar continued, would be based on complementary growth rather than shared limitations. Each species contributing their strengths while learning from human adaptability. The result would be a civilization more robust and creative than anything the galaxy has seen. And more chaotic, added a new voice. Marcus turned to see a tall figure entering the observation deck, moving with mechanical precision that immediately identified him as Kethvar. But this one was different from the leader they had encountered months ago. His crystalline features showed traces of expression, hints of personality that shouldn't exist in a being dedicated to perfect order. Sub-Commander Thex Neal, Lyrelai said with genuine warmth. How goes your research into controlled chaos theory? Disturbingly well, the Kethvar replied, and Marcus was amazed to hear what sounded like humor in his voice. My analysis suggests that limited exposure to chaotic thinking patterns increases problem-solving efficiency by approximately 37%. My superiors find this data troubling. Marcus stepped forward. Are you here representing the Kethvar government? I am here representing myself, Thexanil replied, a concept I learned from observing human independence of thought. My people are divided on the question of chaos integration, some fear contamination. Others, like myself, see opportunity for evolution beyond our current limitations. Dr. Vasquez joined the conversation, her scientific curiosity evident. You're saying the Kethvar might actually join this alliance? A faction might, Thexneal confirmed. But that decision will depend largely on whether your alliance can demonstrate its effectiveness against a true challenge. The Eternal Order has dispatched an evaluation fleet to this sector. They will arrive within standard weeks to assess the human threat. The observation deck fell silent as the implications sank in. The test was coming whether they were ready or not. How many ships? Marcus asked. 300 vessels, including several reality manipulation platforms, Thexanil replied grimly. The Eternal Order does not believe in half measures. Ambassador Vextar's skin cycled through several colors rapidly. 300 ships would be a challenge for any alliance. Against a force that includes reality manipulation technology, we'll need every advantage we can get, Marcus agreed. He looked around at the diverse gathering of beings who had come to witness the birth of something new. How many of your species would be willing to commit to active defense rather than just observation? All of them, Lyrelai said with quiet confidence. That's why they're here, Marcus. They're not just curious about human creativity. They're desperate for change, for growth, for the possibility of a future that isn't predetermined by ancient powers. Marcus felt the moment crystallizing around him. 3 months ago, he'd been a ship captain on a routine exploration mission. Now he was apparently being asked to lead a galactic revolution against forces that had controlled the universe for eons. It was exactly the kind of impossible situation that humans specialized in. Right then, he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had decided to attempt the impossible. We have weeks to turn a diplomatic gathering into a fighting force. Let's see what humans and their friends can accomplish when we really put our minds to it. Around the observation deck, beings from across the galaxy began to smile, or make their species' equivalent expression of anticipation. The alliance that had formed around humanity's chaotic creativity was about to face its first real test. And despite the overwhelming odds, every being present felt something they hadn't experienced in eons. Hope for a future that could be shaped rather than simply endured. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when human determination met alien wisdom in the face of impossible challenges. Marcus suspected it would be a lesson that echoed through the cosmos for millennia to come.